الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. One of the questions that arises during this time period where we see attacks on innocent and you see attacks on civilians and the recent attack and attacks on Iran and throughout the Middle East and Palestine and Lebanon, one asks this question as to why does bala happen, why does hardship happen? Why do these wars happen? And what can we do in order to cope with all this? Because a lot of us have family, a lot of us have friends in these countries. We are very worried for them. What can we do to make ourselves stronger? What can we do in order to be able to pray for them more? Tonight's topic is about how to change our perspective in a way that it aligns with the perspective of God. See, sometimes we might look at things and incidents and occurrences by a material view and see that it looks like it is devastation. But once you remove the lens and look at things in a monotheistic lens, you see that in reality, when a person does something that is right, when a person does something that is good, when a person is helping the oppressed, now maybe we look at that, for example, as death and destruction, but in reality you see that they have achieved what Allah has created them for. They have set themselves free. They have, how Quran mentions, they have created life for themselves. They are alive. And when you change this perspective, you actually see the oppressors and those who harm others and those who starve others, starving 2 million population right now. See that they are dead. In reality, their hearts are dead. So even though we think that, yes, right now this is devastation, look, we should always submit to the oppressor, we should just let them do whatever we want, we shouldn't, get involved at all. We realize that that is not how the followers of the Imam of the age should behave. The followers of Imam al-Zaman are always trying to do something that their Imam comes back, preparing the grounds for Imam al-Zaman to come, to promote justice and knowledge and religion throughout the world. So therefore, we have to change our perspective. We have to look at things differently. So the first thing that we look at is that we look at the final result. And the final result of any person who does good is that they reach completion, they reach goodness, they reach God's favor. Maybe it looks like blood and death and destruction, but in another lens, you're seeing that they are passing this test. They have reached a high position. And on the day of judgment, they'll come and have the highest of stations. Allah has put all these examples for us throughout the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. While Muharram is approaching us, you see that the battle of Karbala, the day of Ashura, was a day that you might think of the day that 72 of the bravest of people were shaheed and killed, and that was it. But yet you see that actually the tradition mentions that everyone wishes, the shuhada wish they had the position of Hazrat Abbas. They wish they had the position of Hazrat Abbas because he was one of those who without any hesitation gave his life for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And we see that the long-term outcome of events, you cannot judge an event by itself just today. You see that maybe sometimes it takes 1,000 years in order to see the result of one event. You see today, as how brothers mentioning, in downtown Los Angeles, we'll be remembering Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Thousands of individuals will be remembering Imam Hussein alayhi salam, an event that happened 1,400 years ago, but today in a completely different continent. You see that the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was victorious. So unless we change the way we look at things, we won't be able to have that patience, that resilience, that the follower of the Imam al-Zaman alayhi salam needs. So we need to change things. So the first thing is, look things in detail. Don't look at the material, look at it in the long run. Look at the final result. Look at how Quran talks about the dhalimeen and the oppressors. Quran talks about them that we have given them respite so that we can await and give them a longer chastisement in the hereafter. You cannot judge things in life and only according to hayatul dunya. You have to look at also hayatul akhirah, the life of the hereafter. Then you come to the conclusion, who is victorious, who is not. That's why when Imam Ali alayhi salam was struck by the head by Ibn Muljam, you see that he swears by the Lord of Kaaba that I am victorious. Because this victory is true victory. The one who submits to Allah, the one who knows Allah, the one who sacrifices in the path of Allah, he is the one who has victory. But do not look at those who, in this world, you might see, for example, mentioned the battle of Karbala of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You look at it in a very superficial lens or short term. You look at events and long term. That is the first thing that we talk about tonight. The second is that the more you investigate things how they are, the more you're able to change these difficulties into blessings. At one glance, they look at calamity, bala, but in reality is a blessing. How is it a blessing? When Allah gives us troubles or difficulties or challenges, three things happen to us. One, to the pious person. One, that person leaves their ego and they leave their self-reliance. They rely upon Allah. Have you ever been in a difficult situation, maybe at work, maybe in your life, maybe in studies, and you lost everything? Maybe you lost your job. Maybe, for example, you wanted to go, for example, to marry somebody, they didn't allow you to, for example. You lost your self-confidence, you lost that, you thought that everyone was against you. At that time, you realize when Allah gives you these challenges, that you yourself, you realize that I cannot do anything. Your iman and faith and tawakkul to Allah increases. That is the time you forget about yourself, you rely upon Allah. Allah mentions in the Holy Quran about those individuals that are in the sea, and the sea is shaking them, and they have no hope, because I don't know if you've ever been in the ocean or in the seas. What happens if I'm thrown into the water, nobody helps me for a long period of time, I'll drown. Then Quran mentions they pray to Allah with ikhlas. They pray to Allah with sincerity. Then they become a true mu'min. But then when they come back to the shore and they're protected, they forget Allah. They forget what happened. So mankind needs sometimes to be shooken in order to not forget Allah, to forget themselves. Because the biggest problem of mankind was reliance on the self, was becoming arrogant. So one of the benefits for the believer, that when we have such challenges, is that we rely on Allah. You do more dua. You say, Allah, I cannot do anything, it is up to you. We ask the Prophet, we ask the Imams to beseech us, we beseech them in order to get the mercy of Allah. So the first thing, when we talk about changing the way we look at things, is that when these calamities happen, there is khair in it. One of the first khair is that I leave my ego. I leave that dangerous nafs that I had. The second is that when people suffer, when there are difficulties, there is forgiveness of sin. There is forgiveness of sin. Some of the traditions talk about a person who has a difficult death. A difficult death, one who is sick. They say that that person will not have the pressure of the grave anymore. That person will not have the pressure of the grave. So when you have difficulties in life, and as today we see many people are afraid what's going, that fear itself, if you link it with piety, if you link it with tawakkul, Allah forgives your sins for it. Allah forgives you for it. Is there anything more greater than the forgiveness of Allah? All those actions that we did, all that dhulm that we did to ourselves, to others, that God will forgive it? So the second is that there is forgiveness. And the third is completion. When Allah puts us in a difficult situation, and maybe many of you, have you ever been in a position where you were tested? Were you ever in a position you're in complete poverty, you didn't have anything? You see, some of the best businessmen are those who were bankrupt before, for example. Because through that becoming bankrupt or failing once, they realize, for example, that they're able to become more complete. Or for example, if you have a general in the army, let's say, and he doesn't have any battles, is that general ever complete if he doesn't have any battles? Or that general that is tested and tried throughout his entire life, that general is the complete general. So when you realize maybe in your own life, I want you to reflect a little bit and think of those times that were very severe and hard for you. Did you become better? Did you become more complete afterwards? Or if everything was exactly how you wanted it, would you still be the same complete person? So that is another way for us to take advantage of this beautiful mind that Allah has given us, is that when you look at these difficulties, that you change them into blessings. You see, you see that Allah has forgiven you. You see that Allah has taken away that nafs from you, that ego from you. And third, that Allah has made you complete. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa I'm going to give you an example of some of the tests and tribulations in the history of Islam. We know that Rasulullah spent a lot of time, that 13 years that he was in Mecca, he was tried. In those 10 years he was in Medina, he was tried. There you see that Rasulullah, one of the biggest challenges that he had, after he left and he came to Medina, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he was all alone in the battle of Ahzab, the Confederates, or some say the battle of the trench. This is a time period with the Quraysh, after Badr and Uhud, now they gain others. They want everyone to come to destroy Islam. As if, for example, in that time, the whole world is coming to attack them. And you see that the Rasulullah is outnumbered. There, some say 10,000 against say 3,000. At that time, Medina, even though there's a large army from Quraysh that came from the outskirts of Medina, and because of the engineering of some of the Prophet's companions like Salman al-Farsi, they build a khandaq, a trench, to keep them out. But from behind the Muslims in Medina, there were evil tribes of Bani Qurayza and different tribes that they were about to attack the Muslims from behind. Very dangerous situation. When you look at this time period, Quran mentions, just so you acquaint yourselves, and I really believe that during these time periods, we have to reflect on the Holy Quran. One of the verses about how troubling it was this, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. Now I'll say that, later. It says, إِذْ جَاءَكُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِكُمْ. Remember when they came at you from above you and from below you. Quran is mentioning. The enemy outnumbered us. Above you and below you. And your eyes shifted in fear. You ever see someone whose eyes is shifting in fear? And hearts reached the throats. Quran says, وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبِ الْحَنَاجِرِ. Meaning that the hearts were pumping so much, they're so afraid, it came to the throat. They were so afraid. And you assumed about Allah various assumptions. And you thought you had a bad God. You thought you had a God who wouldn't protect you anymore. Because when you see these people and you're outnumbered, and they, for example, gave you a siege and you're starving, for example, for 20 days, for a long time, you're wondering, what are you going to do? How long is this trench going to protect me from these 10,000 people? They're afraid. Quran here mentions other parts. For example, هُنَالِكَ ابْتُلِيَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. There the believers were tested. وَزُلْزِلُوا زِلْزَالًا شَدِيدًا. And they were shaken with a severe shaking. They're afraid. Do you ever see the time where you're failing, when the time you're afraid, and you think the whole world is against you and there's nothing else to do? At that time, Quran gave us these examples. They came to Rasulullah, they came to Allah, they were afraid. And this is the time, and the hypocrites, it said, وَإِذْ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ, and those who didn't have iman, and those who were hypocrites, they said to those whose hearts is diseased, said, Allah and His Messenger did not promise us except delusion. It was all fake. Their promise is fake. He's not a prophet. Allah, for example, He's not with him. Quran says, وَوَعَدْنَا Allah wa Rasul illa gharura. It's all fake, everything. And this is what happens. It's a natural, emotional, if a person doesn't have strong faith, they think when things come crumbling down, they think, oh, right now, for example, everything is fake. At that time, Allah brings the one who in the tradition says, if you put all of Iman in one hand, and you put the rest of Iman in one person, if you weigh them, all of the faith of all of humanity in one hand, and the faith of this person in one hand, the faith of this person will outweigh the faith of everyone else in the world. Who is this person he brings? Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Brings Imam Ali, the true mu'min. Please recite salawat Allah, salli ala Muhammad, ala Muhammad, wa ala. At that time he brings them, and the battle is about to begin in this fifth year of Hijrah. A treacherous person comes, Amr ibn Abdul Wad, one that he asks for, who's going to challenge me, who's going to fight against me. One person, they thought this one person is equal to 1,000. One person. He somehow, this trench that it was impossible to jump or to pass through, he passed it. There, Imam Ali alayhi salam comes forward, even though Rasulullah doesn't want Imam Ali to fight here. He asks others, and nobody else comes. But you see, as these difficult times with those who have faith, they are the ones who will continue this fight. They will continue because they will believe truly that they will be victorious no matter what. Because we said when you change your view, you view victory as doing what is right, what Allah wants. Now the result is not in my hands, but I am supposed to be a good person. I'm supposed to help the oppressed. I'm supposed to command the good. I'm supposed to forbid the evil. Whatever happens, happens at the end. But I'm supposed to be that good person. I'm not supposed to be a coward. I'm not supposed to help the oppressed. So Imam Ali alayhi salam comes, and in this battle, just to save you the detail, he strikes him, and he gives him such a blow that the Rasulullah says Ali's stroke was superior to any jinns or humans or Thaqalain's worship. All of that worship you put aside, and the darba of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the hitting of Imam Ali of Amr ibn Abdul Wad on that day is something that's unequal to that. And all of Islam was confronted with all of kufr at that time. So you see that at times of tribulations, it is when Allah tests us. And this is again one of the purposes of bala and calamity, is if this battle of Khandaq didn't exist, would we see with our eyes the hypocrites? And would we not see the iman of Imam Ali alayhi salam? So Allah gives us difficult times, challenges so much. We said that the hearts of some of the people, their hearts were at their throats because they're so afraid. So we need to look at, this is the history of Islam, and many times we need to relate it to today's time period. What then happened, that verse that I was going to share, is actually one of the other statements I want to say. When you trust in Allah, and what you do, what you're supposed to, Allah will give you in a way that you don't even expect, will give you victory. Allah will help you. And at that time, these 10,000 people, after Imam Ali struck this champion in such a way, and the Quran says, we also gave them winds. The Quran says, فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ رِيحًا. We gave them winds and they became afraid. وَجُنُودًا لَمْ تَرَوْهَا. And we gave them an army that they didn't see. They became afraid. They left. Ahzab, the Confederates, at that time the entire world that was gathering to destroy Islam, our religion. Imagine if they were successful, what would happen? At that time, Allah, through Rasulullah's planning and the bravery of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Allah saved Islam. And later on this battle, a few people died, it didn't really take place. But the Muslims were victorious because Allah gave them, Imam Ali alayhi salam, true believers, Allah gave them winds And Allah gave them this army that they could not see. So therefore we understand that when you have a true intention, when you fight for the truth, when you do what is right, Allah will help you. Again, maybe sometimes in the short run you won't see those results, but in the long run, you'll see that things will change eventually. And all those oppressors who are oppressing people, they will eventually fall. Let's recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil fajr. And that brings us to the fourth thing that I'd like to say, and that is, during such troubling times, you can never remove our struggle without connection to Imam al-Zaman. Many of us were so occupied with reading the news every day, every second. You keep refreshing, second is coming. But are we still occupied with dua and prayer? And I'm saying this to myself. It's very easy to be updated, with the news. But it's sometimes more difficult to think that, if I pray and I make dua the same amount, that dua is going to be effective. That dua is going to be heard. Because the du'as of the believers are heard. That tawassul, and this is the fourth thing, that reliance and that connection to Imam al-Zaman, which is very important. Allah puts us through fitna and challenges so that we can remember Imam al-Zaman, we can remember the Munji, the Savior. We can pray for him to come earlier. And this is something that's very important because Mahdawiyat or Mahdism is nothing but hope. It means that the aqibah, the end, is for the believers. That the righteous will inherit the earth. That at the end, however much they do dhulm and oppression, at the end, all this dhulm and oppression will be removed. Look at Qadir, which was, last week, Eid al-Qadir. Look at Eid al-Mubahala. Try to learn from these events. Did you know in the khutbah of Qadir, not only did Rasulullah say, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla, whoever I have authority over, Ali alayhi salam has authority over, he also mentioned Imam al-Zaman a few times in his speech. Did anyone here read Sermon al-Qadir? Look at this part. He talks about the Imam of the age to the people. It is the last Hajj, the largest gathering of the people. Rasulullah is talking about our Imam and says to the people, Ala innahu al-muntaqim min al-zalimin. Behold, he is the one who will take revenge to their oppressors. Ala innahu fatihul husun wa hadimuha. Behold, he is the conqueror and the destroyer of those fortresses that nobody could destroy, but Imam al-Zaman will destroy. So Mahdism is the fourth way when you want to talk about changing our perspective, is that you have to always connect to the Munji. Always connect dhulm and oppression to the individual who will remove it. Because the narration says the world will be full of oppression at that time until the Imam comes and removes it from the world. The fifth thing, because we've run out of time, is this important question, is how can I, with this vision of changing things, we said that, look at the reality of things. Look at how they really are. Look at victory as doing the right thing, having the right belief. That is victory. Look at things in the long run. Don't look at the short run. Make dua, pray for occurrences. Involve yourself spiritually with these occurrences. And we said, about thinking of Imam al-Zaman. The fifth, we asked this question, how can I be more courageous? And how are some individuals today, that many of them are the most courageous of people? We have, people that are, we call them the Ammar of our time, for example. Like Ammar ibn Yasir, or helped Imam Ali alayhi salam into the age of 90. We have Ammar today. How are they so brave? The tradition will end today is this tradition for Imam Ali alayhi salam. Whoever wants to hear it, recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajfaj. We see that courage, in reality, is made up of three innate qualities. Those who are courageous have three qualities. Let's see if I have them. What makes a person shuja'? Because we said at the time of Khandaq, their hearts were at the throats. They had bad assumptions of Allah. They thought that Rasulullah lied to them, for example. we see that courage has three qualities. Let's see. Imam Ali Alayhi says, if you have all three qualities, you'll be a champion. You don't even need to have all three qualities. You need to have just one of them, for example. Or one of them should overcome the other quality. The first quality of a courageous person is as-sakha bin nafs, meaning generosity with one's life. Not to be so afraid, for example, what's going to happen to me, I'm going to be harmed. Sometimes we're not generous when it comes to our money, we're not generous when it comes to ourselves. We're always selfish. Such a person is not going to be shuja. Such a person is not going to be courageous. He's only thinking about himself and his family. So the first quality of the courageous one is as-sakha bin nafs. He's generous with his soul. 2, wal-anifatu min al-dhul, a refusal to accept humiliation. I don't want to be humiliated. I don't want to be disgraced. They give me, for example, offers, but that offering is going to humiliate me. And I know at the end there's treachery in it, so I say, I don't want to accept this offer, for example. So you see, the second quality of the courageous one is one who would not accept disgrace from themselves. You ever see someone who's bullied and punched, for example, in school or in sometimes in the workplace or sometimes in the home? That person is allowing themselves to accept to be madloom and oppressed, to be disgraced. But you see, sometimes some kids at a young age, might not be strong, but they're courageous because they have self-respect. They don't want to be disgraced. They don't want to be humiliated. The third is وَطَلَبُ الذِّكْرِ, in the pursuit of reputation. I have honor, of reputation for myself. I'm not going to allow someone to take advantage of me, to take advantage of my people, for example. If you have these three qualities, you'll be courageous. And that is why, alhamdulillah, our leaders and our leadership is so courageous because of these qualities. 1, generosity of the soul. I'm not afraid of my soul. I'm generous. 2, refusal to accept humiliation. And the third is pursuing of a honorable mention. And the Imam says, if you have all three of these, you become a hero who cannot be resisted. If you have all three of these, renowned for his bravery, for his time. But even if you have one of these qualities, it outweighs the others in a person. This person will manifest strongly and prominently in that particular area. So therefore, this is the last, we could say, prescription for Imam Ali alayhi salam that we can work ourselves is, how can I see myself as being nothing? How can I be ready to give my life for the Imam of the age, for Allah, to give my money, my wealth, my time? You see, some are like that. They work for Islam all the time. They do what is right all the time. Some, they just want to take. They just come, God forbid, to centers or for friends. They just want to take. They don't want to give. When you get used to giving, you'll be in this path of being a courageous person. 2, when you won't accept disgrace, you don't want to be dishonored, you'll be a courageous person. And the third, if you think of yourself to have an honorable mention, you think about your reputation, then you will be of the most courageous. Inshallah, Allah give us all three of these qualities. May Allah, inshallah, give victory to the Muslims, inshallah, to the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. May Allah have rahmah and mercy for all the Ammars of our time, for all those who have fought against oppression during our time. May Allah, inshallah, make us of those who are sincere followers of Imam al-Zaman, are sincere muntadhirin, and inshallah expedite his return with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa